The standard level that you're going to build is going to actually, hopefully, prompt you to use a number of things that we've done in the past. The standard level that you're going to build, I'm providing you with, and every student's going to do their own, an overview. And you've got a floor layout for each of these. Each of the floor layouts that is being provided has got a grid. And if you consider the grid to be 500 by 500, you can use a standard static mesh to actually lay out your floor plan and then build your meshes or your geometry on top of it. Inspiration images, you'll notice that this has got a little bit of an inset. In fact, the first floor has got a little bit of an inset. It's not quite accessible. That could be for trucks to pull up to, loading bays, that kind of a thing. Simple stairways, all you need to do is rough it out. You don't even need a static mesh for your helicopter yet. Just put a little box that says insert helicopter later. And on these floor by floor layouts, if you consider, again, this is the 500 by 500 units, these images, if you scale them properly, will be a direct layout for you. So let's take a look at a couple of other things that we've done in the past to help you with this. I mentioned this in the Schoology conference I'm recording as well, but this particular video is going to outlive Schoology. That's only a 7-day thing. The prototype pass is what you want to always start with. We've talked about this, different generations or stages of your development. So don't worry about your static meshes. Don't worry about your lighting. And don't worry about what it's going to look like eventually. Just come up with a playable space using the design that was provided for you. Now, in the past, when we worked on the maze, we did a process of lining up an image. And what I did here is I gave you also, instead of just the spec document, which is typically how you might receive something from another student in the class, I gave you images that could be used to, create a material to throw on. Now, I got a lot of questions back on, I'm having trouble getting this to line up exactly on my geometry. There's one more activity that we did, which might have been helpful to you. And I'm giving you like breadcrumbs, clues on one way to do this. There could be other ways to do it. It doesn't mean that the way I'm showing you is the only way. I'm just indicating that I find this is worth considering, that if you come up with a workflow, if you come up with a workflow that works for you, you're going to be in a better position. So not everyone did this particular activity, but what it shows you how to do is to take a texture, turn it into a material, and then using a process, get the material to line up. Now, our character in here, the Manny character they call him, should be 180 units. And so the top of this guy's head, because he's standing with his feet separated, the top of this should be a little higher, okay? And so, yes, there are some challenges in tweaking this so that it lines up exactly. This model character actually is a little taller than 180 characters for whatever reason. So he should actually, because he's straight up and down in a T-pose, he should actually come up a little bit higher than the 180 as well. So one should be a little bit smaller, one should be a little higher if it's ideal. This is not an easy thing to do. It's wonderful how well the math has worked out for the maze. So you can combine those two concepts and come up with a layout on a floor that you can then lay your buildings on top of. Now, whether you did that or not, I did have some examples that people completed and turned in for the assignment already. And they'll have an opportunity to improve it today if they're online, because I know not everybody's online all 5 days in a week. So I will be moving this optional enrichment over as well. So let's take a look at some samples that were turned in. Hopefully I saved, yes I did. So Ethan's got a nice video here that we'll take a look at. Before I start it, I just want to mention, these are just tips, and sometimes in comments I do that. When you do game screen capture, next time, the F11 key will put your play screen in full mode, all right? That's just a tip. Somebody else had another one that, they were saying about, I'll talk to that one in a little bit. All right, let's fire this up. By the way, these are all successes. Everybody that got something turned in is a success. Let's take a look at the video put together. I can tell from the background, he didn't worry about textures. I can tell from the BSP operations, these cuts, that he's added some features. And so it's not just blank walls. And there is a maze format, top of the stairs. He's added some details. The floor layout looks like it's working out well. Some parts you can see up, some parts you can see down. We're not worried about if the floor layout on the floor above lines up or not. So there's the openings, which are pitfalls. There's a maze that needs to be, there's an unjumpable space, which was in the specs. Here we are on the roof, and he even stubbed out a static mesh using brushes. So I would say the student went above and beyond for prototyping. Some interesting angle here. Just to kind of demonstrate, I believe, that there's a pitfall which does not prompt a restart, because the pitfalls were designed so that, depending on how you wanted to play this from the student's perspective. Now here's something interesting. That's a no touch, because if you touch it, you do get sent back to the restart. Very nicely done. Exceptional. And other students who turned their work in had different ways of showing me the work. Could have been images. It could have been videos. Some of them I've already graded and returned. I didn't return that one yet because I wanted to actually use it as an example here, because once I do a return on it, then they see it and it doesn't show up in my to be graded area. Well, nicely done. Nicely done. Here's some other student examples. I've got, see Jacob here. I did return Jacob's to him, and he comments about a problem with lights. And so these comments are very helpful to me. It gives me a chance to give people some feedback. Here's a tip. If you've got a dark area, you can view it in unlit mode. And as a reminder, when you're in play mode, press F1, F2, F3. Show it in wireframe. You can show it in unlit mode. You can show it in lit mode. And by doing those variety of lighting modes, especially with Generation 1, you can show off the construction, which is really what the first stage is about. The second tip, if you want to put in some, let's call them working lights. So in the real world, when they're building a large building, there are times when they string through basically what looks like a giant extension cord. In about every so many feet, there's a little plastic protective cage, and inside of that's an industrial strength light bulb. And they use those work lights to kind of light out an area so that before they actually have the power in the building, people can see where they're going and avoid hazards. So we can do the same thing by holding the L key and clicking to create a light. Now there's a heads up or caveat that goes with this. The way light calculations are done in the Unreal Engine, you don't want to have multiple lights overlapping. So if I had, a light source followed by a second and then third light source, that's about the limit that you want to get to, is maybe 3 light sources over one area. And what you'll see if you end up with too many is the light bulb, I guess it's an icon that's in the level, will have a red X across it, indicating that there's some confusion or too much complexity with the lighting. The easiest way to fix that is to keep the spheres of influence that you see on your light bulbs in the editor, keep them spaced out so that they overlap minimally, if at all. So try those 2 things. All right, those are 2 improvements. So his video is great because it shows that the construction is here. He's working in editor. He's in lit mode. Let's take a look at that. Move my box over there. See up here in lit mode? You can click on that and go to unlit mode. It might be a little bit easier to see. So we're now inside the space. We're not in play mode. But if we just change this to unlit, it would be a little bit easier to pick up on. There we are on the outside. The student did put their name on top. I'm not worried about this flickering on the top where you can kind of see the maze through. He even named it Tiered Maze. Great example for level 1, all right? Or for Generation 1, stage 1. Just like to highlight some successes. Now, didn't it something or other? If memory serves. This is my vault, and if you don't have a vault set up, well, actually you have a vault set up, but if you're not downloading the free for the month content, definitely something to do, because I haven't looked at this in a while. I've used it in projects in the past. EON, abandoned. There it is. abandoned factory. It's got the word scans in it. So this is a project that I can add to a project. Let's see if it's got a little exclamation mark. Let me see what's going on here. It goes through 4.26, which is good. Now, this would give you decorative elements such as meshes, materials, textures that you can embed in your level. And for this standard design, I think this is a very appropriate set of content. And rather than worrying about making all of your own meshes and making all of your own textures, and to be honest, this is more like using somebody else's crayons or paints. This would be a bunch of interesting things. Now, I'm hoping, yes, this is modular. I think once you've worked with a couple of modular sets, you'll find that the appeal is great, and you might even want to start building your own. So take that basic geometry that we worked on as the general design. Once you've got it completed, time available in day 2 on this project, what I want you to do is grab this content. I'll show you where to find it. You see the third person characters down here? It's fine to stay with the standard third person and choose your own meshes, textures, and a little bit of lights, and try to go from that generation 1 with your geometry to generation 2. That's only for time available, people. If you don't have the geometry, you're not in a position to get in there and do that. So there's a number of things to put in there. Let's see. All right, great. So this is a material. Thank you to Adam and Michael. Great. So these scans are phenomenal. You're going to end up with a large project by the end of this, by the way, content-wise. Perfect. This is the modularity that I wanted to show off to you. So I believe these are static meshes. And if you look in here, you've got some walls you could use as interior spaces, as well as some that are better oriented to the outside. Again, variety of items. You can hang them on the ceiling. You can put them outside of a window that you decide to add. You don't need to have any windows. This was designed to be a playable indoor space. Well, there's even some railroad tracks, I think, in here. So you're getting the normal maps, you're getting the bump maps, you're getting all of the content that you need. Yep. So, very good. So there we go. What I'm going to do, I got to put my mask on. I got students showing up. I'm going to end this demo. I'm going to post this to YouTube so people get an idea. Whatever questions you have, I'm going to kick this conference and we're going to reopen one called Office Hours and Open Lab. And if you haven't watched this, the reason I'm doing this now is the early birds are getting run through this now, and those that join us later, I'm going to tell you go watch the video first. All right, I see there is already 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who've jumped on. So this is a recording that will be posted to Schoology. So everybody that's on right now, I apologize, I'm about to kick you. Please join the conference. I start right after this so that we can have this as a recorded conference.